Hello, e-classmates. My name is Marvi Rodriguez, and my report is the Part 3.1 of Unit 1, Module 1. That is, the communication media used in development work. Specifically, the most commonly used ones, more specifically, object media. I will also be touching on interactive media briefly. Let's start. So, according to Brett, there are three broad classifications of media according to use. They are object media, presentation media, and interactive media. Now, let's start with interactive media. Your keywords here are audience participate. That means the target audience participate or are involved in the learning process to achieve a goal. Some examples of this are computer aided instruction or device aided instruction. And a specific example is e-learning, the one we are doing now, and also social media. So users interact with each other, so it's an interactive media. Another example is augmented reality or virtual reality. In development communication context, this can be used, for example, in a fire drill virtual reality version. Next is an interactive handout. So in a seminar or a meeting, while the lecture proceeds, the participants might have to fill out blanks about the program. That's interactive. Lastly is games. So in a development communication context, games can be used in a social change aspect, like, for example, a game about raising a farm animal or a game about how to prevent accidents at home. So simulation games like that. All right, now let's start with social media. So for this, I will be giving definitions, and examples in development communication context. So the main definition is it can be manipulated. And also, it can be felt by the senses. So it's concrete, can be examined, and the parts can be moved. So the major sense here is the sense of touch. Object media has two major subtypes. We have real objects and models. For real object, that is concrete, and actual, meaning it's authentic and things are tangible, like a realia. Here are some subtypes of real objects. We have specimens and replicas. Let's start with specimens. The definition is it is a representative or part of a whole for testing or examination. It's like a sample of something, especially in scientific studies and medical field, right? Now, a scientist might collect a specimen of a plant or animal for a study, like that. Now, I will give you an example when it comes to development or social change context, like here in Udzungwa and Rubeho Highlands, that is in Tanzania, wherein the specimens were collected, and from that, there was biodiversity, and then new national parks and protected areas were discovered or were established, and it resulted in large investments in the area. There are also studies like it in the Philippines, specifically in Palawan. Now, advantages and disadvantages. Specimens advantage is that it offers clarity because it's the actual thing. Therefore, it bridges the gap between theory and real lives. Instead of imagining it, you actually have the actual thing, so it's more accurate. Now, disadvantages is that it's perishable and it's too bulky sometimes, especially when it's a large specimen, especially when you're not an expert at handling specimens, that it can perish and rot and therefore become useless. Now, let's move on to replicas. So replicas is an exact three-dimensional copy of an object, especially when the actual thing cannot be fulfilled. Then you use a replica. Some examples are the Statue of Liberty and Eiffel Tower in Las Vegas. In development communication context, this is a replica ballot box used in the voter education campaigns. So ballot boxes cannot be, that the real ballot boxes cannot be transported wherever, right? So they used a replica. Advantages of a replica is that it's intangible, tangible example, so it's more effective. The learning is more effective, and the actual thing can be, the material of the actual thing can be expensive, so you can make a replica made of cheaper materials. However, it can also cost more because instead of bringing the actual thing, you have to reproduce many copies or replicas, so it can cost more. And it's also difficult to make sometimes. Okay, so those are real objects. Now let's move on. Oh, before we move on, is it just me or was it also you? I was confused between a replica and a model. So I know that a model is an enlarged or reduced three-dimensional copy of an object, but also replica is a copy of an object. So I made the research, and according to Terada Moke, the difference between them is that replicas, the keyword is replacement, so meaning it's an is a substitute, especially when the actual object can't be transported or it's too precious to be taken out. So it should be preserved. So that's a replica. And then the model, it is a representation. So the main purposes are to study, explain, and especially to demonstrate how something works. That's a model. Okay, thank you. Now there are two types of models. So classifications are mockups and dioramas. Let's talk about mockups. So mockups are working 3D reproductions of whole or part. So the keyword there is working, meaning it's a visual representation, also a simulation. So there is a functionality element there. It can be manipulated. So I am reminded of mock-up test here. You know, you take the test, it's like the actual thing, but it gives you the experience of the actual thing. So it's just like that. Also, companies can also produce mock-up products, especially when they don't want to shell out the same amount of money. And so they just give testers mock-ups for testing their products. In the development communication context, so this is in University of Bristol, wherein the scientists or engineers experimented on the earthquake resilience of this 3D printed mock-up. And then afterwards, they were able to construct safety standards and help people. Now the advantages and disadvantages. So first, because it's almost the same, the real thing, it allows learners to manipulate the object, and so the learning is more effective. It's more accurate. And disadvantages, since you have to reproduce something, then it can be expensive and difficult to make. It takes a lot of time too. Last one is diorama. So a diorama is a 3D representation of events, places, and eras. So this is used to tell a story, especially. Personally, I would like to think it's like an art plus nonfiction, like pop-ups. I remember we were asked to bring a diorama of a savanna in elementary. That was so fun. So some examples can be a school project showing, for example, a rainforest ecosystem, or a museum diorama showing historical battle. In social change or development communication context, this is a diorama of disaster preparedness. It shows safe evacuation routes in a community, and this can be found in Tokyo Rinkai Disaster Prevention Park. It's complete with characters and different parts of the building. The advantages of a diorama is that it can be manipulated and there is storytelling power. I think storytelling is really engaging, especially for younger people, for kids. And disadvantages since you have to produce something, so the materials can be expensive, it's difficult to make, and sometimes it's cumbersome, meaning it's large and heavy. So it's difficult to transport it wherever you want. And those are the classifications and subclassifications of object media. I hope you were able to learn something from the presentation. Now, the questions I have are, what topic or issue in the Philippines would you like to explain using object media, and how would you do it? Just one issue and then one way how to do it using object media. And second question, in government programs where object media is the most effective to use, like in demonstration. What do you think is the biggest challenge to this, and how can it be resolved? So one big challenge, it could be on the government side or the people side, and how it can be resolved. Thank you very much for listening. Here are my sources and citations for this presentation. I hope you learned something from me, and I'm also excited to learn from you. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.